$1 million.
He says that's his money.
They call their adult son a dishonest,
The store was started with money they owed me.
That's a lie.
lazy,
You say she paid off my house, but it is a filthy mess. You're in there with 35 cats?
thief.
You were forging checks.
Yes.
How many times have you been in jail?
Oh, too many to count.
Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
Today is going to be a changing day in your life.
5, 4.
I am not giving up on you. Well, Carol and her husband Frank finally retired 7 months ago. They say they were excited to relax, enjoy their golden years and the fruits of their labor. But tragically, they claim they have been robbed blind by someone who has stolen $20,000 from their pet store, charged $10,000 worth of products to their Amazon account, forged almost $5,000 in checks, and is now trying to claim the $1 million they made from selling their business. They say if this doesn't stop, they will be left penniless with nothing to show for their years of hard work. So what kind of person or people would try to destroy two innocent elderly retirees? A disgruntled former employee? An ex with an axe to grind? A cyber-stalking group with a grudge? Well, if you guessed any of those, you're wrong, because the person that they say is robbing them is their 48-year-old son, Paul.
My son, Paul, is stealing my husband and I blind and has been for almost 30 years.
Paul has been a train wreck since he was 16 years old.
Paul is manipulative and he's a lying, lazy thief.
I need some cash. I don't have any cash.
Paul has stolen at least $100,000 of our money. He's forged checks for thousands of dollars.
We pressed charges and he went to jail. He assaulted his mom and was arrested.
We recently sold our family business and he claims that we owe him half. My son did nothing except steal money from it. He stole $20,000 from the registers alone. He's been using our accounts to charge $10,000 and his response is, well, we owe him the money.
Paul's trying to get back at us by stealing our retirement money.
My husband, Frank, wants to put him in jail again, but I couldn't live with myself.
The way he is and the way he thinks does not match up with reality.
Just killing us to see him this way. I don't know what to do for him anymore.
Well, Paul says, wait a minute. He says he hasn't stolen anything. In fact, he says he's entitled to every penny and more. He says his parents promised him the family business, and since they sold it out from under him, he will continue to steal from them until he gets what is his. Now, Carol and Frank say the pet store was never Paul's. In fact, he stole more than he made.
Paul had an idea about opening a pet store, and we did it.
It was very obvious from the beginning he didn't want to work.
He would constantly quit, but come back a few days later.
As an employer, I would describe him with one word: bad. We had a 6-foot Burmese python that was extremely mean. Most people knew to stay away from it, but not Paul. It bit him. It took us a long time to get that snake off. Of course, Paul's arm became infected, and guess who incurred the cost for that? Paul stole from the store all the time. He would ring things up, make it look like an error, and pocket the money. He would give credit back on purchases and pocket the money.
I didn't give Paul any of the money from the sale because he didn't put a penny in it.
Okay, it's good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You've been retired 7 months now?
Yes.
And your hope was to really kind of kick back and enjoy yourselves, right?
Yes.
It hadn't gone that way.
No.
No.
No, not at all. It's been miserable.
Okay. And why do you think this is happening? Why is your son stealing from you?
He wants. He thinks simply because he wants something that we should give it to him and pay for it.
He doesn't have to steal anything. All he has to do is come ask her. She'll give him anything.
Yep,
Is that true?
that's true. And I've told him, don't steal, ask me and we'll work it out together.
He, certainly qualifies as a terrorist in our, the way we look at it.
Okay, so y'all opened a pet store, right? Was this his idea?
It was his idea.
Okay, and this was when he was 20.
Yes.
So how long ago was that?
It was in 1989.
Yeah, so we're talking a lot of years
30
ago.
years ago.
Yeah, 30 years ago. So you opened this pet store. He said, let's open a pet store. Whose money was it?
Mine.
Okay, and has he worked there?
Off and on. He quits, I fire him. He goes to jail. He begs his way back in. I let him come back in. We fight.
How
I've
many
had him
times has he quit or been fired?
100.
At least.
Yeah.
Are y'all like slow learners or
Yes.
what?
Evidently, yeah.
Obviously.
I mean, if you fire somebody long about the 50th or 60th time, don't you think,
Yeah.
this isn't working out, you might want to work somewhere else?
Where else could he go and take what he wants?
So how much do you figure he stole out of the register?
Out of the register, I figure he hit us for probably $200 to $300 a week, don't you?
Sometimes a day.
Yeah.
Now you've sold the business.
We sold the business.
And you sold it for a handsome profit. You got
Yes.
$1 million out of this. And he says that's his money.
Yes.
Why is it his money?
He says we should have left it to him to run. All right, a couple of months before we finalized it and sold it, he was working for us, and I gave him a chance. I said, come in at 7 o'clock open. He'd show up at 7:30. Employees waiting outside. He'd show up at 8 o'clock. He'd say, I oversleep. I'm busy. His hours were 7 to 3. 12 o'clock, he'd say, you've got plenty of people here. I'm going home. And he would leave. So when we sold it, he says, well, you never gave me a chance to prove that I could run it.
Does he admit to stealing from you?
Yeah.
And he says now that you've sold the business out from under him, he's going to keep stealing from you.
Yeah.
And he's definitely doing that. There ain't any
He
doubt
had
about it.
15 packages come to his house yesterday from Amazon. So it's not like coming on here changed him.
Well, how is he charging Amazon? Is he using somebody's credit card?
We don't know how he gets them. We cancel.
No, it's your credit card.
But I don't know how he got. No, I canceled this credit
She
card
canceled the credit
a month
card,
ago
but the charges come
and got
anyway.
a new number, and we're getting credit. We're getting charges.
You know he's stealing from you, but yet you're continuing to pay his bills?
Yeah. What do
Okay.
I do? Let him go without power? Yeah.
Oh, I just want to understand this. He's stealing from you,
Yes.
and you're over here writing out checks for his utilities and his rent and his taxes and all that while he's stealing from you.
Yes.
Okay, what would he have to do? Where is the threshold by which you would say, enough's enough, too much is too much, I'm not going to continue to pay for all your expenses? You've crossed the line, I'm not going to continue to do that. What would it take?
We're here. This is it. If it doesn't change after this,
Yeah.
I'm done. I will have him arrested again.
Well, let's find out who we're talking about. Paul says he was left penniless after his parents stole his pet store out from under him. Now he says he will not stop stealing from them until he gets what's rightfully his, which I guess is $1 million. We'll meet Paul when we come back.
I feel betrayed by my own parents. They threw me away with the trash. I've stolen $10,000 from my parents in the last 6 months. I can't get a job because, thanks to my parents, I'm a violent felon and a convict.
And later, you have an employee and they steal the money and you say, see you tomorrow.
If he gets arrested again, he may go away for 10 years.
This isn't normal behavior.
That's why we're here.
Paul hacked into his dad's Amazon account.
My son has spent $10,000 of our money on Amazon packages.
His house has 30 cameras in it, and he doesn't need any. I've seen Paul make up to 40 charges in one day.
And all the packages are still at our house.
I don't press charges because I don't want to see him go to jail again, because I don't think he'll live through it.
Well, he's making charges, but she won't press charges. Carol says her 48-year-old son Paul is a lazy thief who has stolen at least $100,000 from her and her husband and is now trying to take the $1 million they made from selling their pet store. Paul says, no. He deserves the money and he will not stop stealing because it's what they owe him. Hear what he has to say.
I feel betrayed, used, abandoned by my own parents. They got what they needed, said to hell with the family, and threw me away with the trash. My parents had a pet store for 30 years and sold it for $1 million, and it was my idea, the store I started, and it was promised to me. The day I found out they stole the business, I was angry beyond belief. I started charging everything I could to their Amazon account like crazy. I've stolen $10,000 from my parents in the last 6 months. When my mother found out about it, I told her I'd been charging as many things as I could just to be vindictive. She said to stop, but I haven't stopped. I've been arrested for forgery and assaulting my parents, which is completely false. I can't get a job because, thanks to my parents, I'm a violent felon and a convict. I barely survived. My parents paid my house off, but it's the smallest, nastiest, dirtiest piece of junk ever. I'm stuck there with my wife, 35 cats, 6 dogs. My mom gets my disability check and pays all my utilities and bills. It disgusts me to be in her presence with what they did to me. They've taken everything from me. My parents were out buying houses, Mercedes, and I was supposed to be able to live that way one day. They took that away from me. I worked all my life in that pet store to make them rich. They're mad because they say I took things from the store, but I had the right to take those things and I didn't hide it from them. I'd love to be able to look in my mother's eyes and say, you screwed me, because what they did was all for a dollar. I'd love to look at my dad and say, you got what you want. I finally hate my mom now. I hope you're happy.
Okay, Paul, I'm glad you're here. You said, just as you came out, that you had something you wanted to clarify. You've been listening to everything that's been said so far.
Yes.
And I'm going to give you the floor to clarify anything and everything you want to clarify.
Okay, well, first off, the store was not started with their money. It was started with money they owed me that I had given them when he lost his job.
That's a lie.
That's not a lie.
That is a lie.
I gave you $8,000, $8,000 to $10,000 of my money I had received from an insurance settlement.
How about you got your own pet store? What happened to that?
Oh, you took it away.
No,
You put
you
me
got
in
on
rehab
drugs.
and took it away and closed it down.
You got on drugs, and all the
So
vendors.
you decided I shouldn't have it.
All the vendors were coming to me, and I had to pay it all off.
Why did you need to go to rehab?
That was right when I was 27 and I had tried an illicit drug for my first time. I was totally unprepared for the results.
You just tried it one time?
No, it lasted a good decade of off and on.
Okay. So you tried the illicit drug for the first time for 10 years?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, so
Once you get involved in that lifestyle, it's hard to get out of it.
I've heard that.
He OD'd.
I did not
He
OD.
also, at one point, he came to my house and he took off high and he was hiding in neighbors' backyards. You get shot that way in Texas.
Yes.
Oh, you said you were going to lock me up, and I left the house and jumped the fence because I thought you were going to lock me up. And I was right. You had me locked up.
But didn't you tell us that during this time you were forging checks and stealing money and
In the very
doing things
beginning,
that
I
you
did
shouldn't have been
forge
doing?
a couple checks
I mean, you
when
were
I
very
got on
honest
court.
with us about that.
Yeah, I did, but it was for $1,000, $1,200 at the most, not thousands of dollars.
We had no money at all then. We were broke.
But you were forging checks.
Yes, I forged 2 checks, I believe it was.
That is a crime, right?
Yes, and they put me in jail for it.
Okay. But you're the one that forged the check.
Yes.
Okay. So isn't the reason you wound up in jail is because you committed
My
a crime?
initial action, right. That time.
How many times have you been in jail?
Oh, too many to count. They've all been assaults based on my mother putting me in jail. One time I'm sitting there laying down, or we have a disagreement, probably over drugs or something like that. She's beating me in the head with a lead glass to where I'm dripping blood down my head. The police come there, and because I kicked her off of me while she's beating me, I went to prison for assault.
I wish that
I
was
went to
the
jail
whole
for assault.
story. He had his wife was in her house. She called me and she said, he's come here. He's grabbing everything out of here. He had a hooker in the car with him outside, or another druggie, and she was trying to get him to stay, and he began to fight us. And stupidly, yeah, I picked up a glass and hit him in the head. Let's don't talk about the time I pulled him out of a crack house and I had to chase the drug dealer down that had the car, brand new car that I had bought him that he had traded for crack.
We have to take a break here, but when we come back, I've got some questions here that I want to kind of go over where the threshold is of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, because y'all talk about some of this stuff like, well, yeah, that happened, but so what? So Carol says she's done everything to make her son Paul's life better, including paying for an awful lot of stuff. I'm going to talk about that when we come back.
Even knowing Paul betrayed us, I've never stopped doing for him. I pay $400 a month in Paul's utilities, $250 for his cable, $7,000 a year in taxes and insurance for the house they live in. I don't stop helping him because I know if I do, he won't have any water or electricity.
And later, do you think they're getting in the attic and listening to you?
Somehow.
You have 30 security cameras.
There's dark in an attic, but I've seen shadows that look to be figures of people. My mother, Carol, is my best friend and my worst enemy.
If I give you that money for the deposit, I want it back when you get it back.
She has backstabbed me repeatedly. My mother's greedy and quick to anger. There's been plenty of times where she has hit or kicked me, and I'm the one who goes to jail for assault. My dad and I have no relationship. I've barely had any contact with them since I was 16, not even a hug. My parents treat me like I'm incompetent, when they are the ones who haven't given me the things I need to be an independent adult.
Well, Carol says Paul is a bottomless pit, that nothing is ever enough, and she can't seem to satisfy him, even though she's financially supported her son for almost 3 decades. Now, he says that's not true. He says he's worked, he's been at the pet store, he's been involved there since its inception. She says the reason that Paul and his 35 cats and 6 dogs have a place to live is because of her. Take a look.
Even knowing Paul betrayed us, I've never stopped doing for him.
And it's $50 for the deposit in the hotel room.
Yeah, I can give you that, but I want it back.
How are you going to get it back?
I bought 5 houses for my son Paul. I bought 6 cars. He's never paid for one. I even pay Paul's monthly expenses. I pay $400 a month in Paul's utilities, $250 for his cable, $100 for his phone bill, $250 a month for his water and gas bill, $7,000 a year in taxes and insurance for the house they live in, $700 monthly car note. And I pay $150 for a monthly storage unit. In that storage is junk that he doesn't need. And the storage unit that you won't get out of.
It's stupid to be paying storage on it.
Yeah, you don't need it. You haven't touched it in 4 years. I don't stop helping him because I know if I do, he won't have any water or electricity. Paul and his wife also have 35 cats and 6 dogs, and I don't want to see them go without either.
You're talking about all of this stuff like, oh, I only forged a few checks, and I only sold this, and I only did this a few times. None of that's acceptable, but y'all talk about it's like every day, that's what everybody does. This isn't normal behavior. You're making it possible for him to continue to be non-productive.
Yes.
I made a list of things that I just went through, that just jumped off the page at me. You won't press charges to put him back in jail when he commits a crime against you. You allow him to return to work after firing him approximately 200 times. He's either quit or been fired 200 times. Yeah, sure, come on back. You have an employee who you turn over the keys to the money, and they steal the money, and they admit they stole the money, and you say, see you tomorrow. You put him in jail. You say, okay, all right, that's it. You're going to jail.
He hires the attorneys.
If you're going to put him in jail and then bail him out and hire an attorney, why put him in to begin with?
Never bailed him out. Just pay the attorneys. If he gets arrested again, he may go away for 10 years.
Well, I'd like to bring up one thing, too. They say how they pay all this out per month for me. That included me working 40 to 60 hours a week that they didn't pay me anything for.
You never worked 40 hours a week.
4 months before we retired.
I'm not finished.
I'm sorry.
Take the children to visit him in jail. You won't call the police. He orders $10,000. That's identity theft and theft by check, essentially, by using a false credit card. $10,000. You do nothing about it. You've bought him 5 homes. You say, she paid off my house. But it is a filthy mess. Who lives there?
Oh, no, you can't count these homes they bought because they throw me out of them. They would
Okay.
get mad because I don't pay rent, even though they're the ones paying me to
Look,
work.
you lived in this one from 91 to 92. You lived in this one from 05 to 07. This one from 07 to 10. This one from 10 to 13. And this one from 13 to the present. And you dog on this house because you say, it's the tiniest, crummiest, filthiest house ever. You live in there with 35 cats and 6 dogs.
Well, that's a business she set my wife up in, raising Persian cats and selling them.
You financially support him, pay utilities, you give an allowance.
Well, that's his money.
I get disability money. That's my money. It's not an allowance. I don't get all of it, but I get my money, some of it.
And you're paying his electric bill,
Yes.
which runs the computer
Yes.
that he uses to steal money from you
Yeah.
on Amazon. If you didn't do that, when the battery went dead on the computer, you'd at least be protected there.
That's true.
You've purchased 6 cars.
Yeah.
6 cars, 5 houses and 6 cars. And you set up 2 other businesses,
Yes.
both of which tanked.
They're the ones who close them down and take them away.
The grooming shop, we didn't close it down.
You put me in jail because I held you back from hitting me and
No.
closed the grooming shop down.
You're lying.
You
on
wouldn't
that
know
one.
if it would've
He
failed
came
me.
over, he wanted something I had, put both his hands around me, squeezed me, and told me to give it to him.
Oh, I didn't put my hands on you. I picked a note out of your hands and held it above your head.
This isn't normal behavior.
No, it's not. It's not.
That's why we're here.
Well, next, Paul says his parents are the reason he has over 30 security cameras in his home. We're going to find out why he believes his house is full of spies. We'll be right back.
I know some people don't believe me, but I hear voices in my house. I feel like my parents have sent family members to my house to spy on me. I'm at the point of going insane because of what my parents have put me through.
Closed captioning provided by
When Paul was 14, he was electrocuted and has never really been the same since.
He touched a high voltage power line and it almost killed him.
The electricity went in his hands, exploded out his feet. He was airlifted to a burn center and spent 6 weeks on his back.
There is no way to know how bad the damage was. A part of me always thinks that has something to do with his problems he has for the rest of his life.
Well, Carol says she's terrified to be left alone with Paul because of his erratic behavior, and she says he's even accused them of sending spies to his home. So what's Paul's proof? Well, he says voices are coming from the attic. Let's take a look.
I know some people don't believe me, but I hear voices in my house. I can hear them commenting on things I say. They're talking about what I'm doing, this and that, sometimes getting mad at each other and yelling, and then I hear somebody calling somebody else. Once I heard the cell phone ring upstairs in the attic. I feel like my parents have sent family members to my house to spy on me. And I know they're there, I have proof. In the attic, lanterns have been moved over to one corner, propane tanks moved over. I know it's either my son, daughter, or my sister.
They live in a different county. They wouldn't go in the house.
The attic goes through up to another entrance into the garage, and the garage is built out into rooms, so they could easily elude me.
He's got cats. They make sounds.
It'll be a raccoon,
It could be a
a possum,
raccoon.
or squirrels.
There's 30 cats? 35?
Yeah, the cats don't form words.
Yeah, but they meow and they sound like people.
About 4 or 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. I think the diagnosis is right, but to be honest, I've always had the feeling of being watched. I think the sense that everybody is always watching me was instilled into me by my parents. I'm at the point of going insane because of what my parents have put me through.
Do you think they're sending family members to your house?
I do, yes,
You think they're getting in the attic and listening to you?
somehow.
To learn what?
I have no clue to stop me from shopping on Amazon because a lot of the orders I make are canceled immediately.
Let's talk common sense here. Forget about them for a second. It's just you and me. You got a 1,400 square foot house. There's you and your wife, 35 cats, and 6 dogs. Does it make common sense to you that there's somebody that has access to get into the attic? You have 30 security cameras. But do you think somebody's eluding these 30 security cameras and getting into your attic and
Actually, with my
listening to
wife's
you?
help, I think that something similar could be done on occasion, and that the rest of the time I'm so on high alert listening that I might be hearing things that aren't there.
Is it likely that there's actually somebody up in your attic?
No.
I mean, because if they can get up in the attic, you can get up in the attic. Have you gone up there with a flashlight and looked around?
Yes, we have 2 separate compartments in the attic, and I'm too old and weak to go over the middle section to the other side. So by the time I'm walking upstairs on one side, they could be on the other side into the garage room. So I can never know definitively. And I pick cameras up there, but they're turned off every time I hear the noises by somebody else, not me.
So when you hear the noise, the camera just goes off by itself?
Yeah, the camera's not working.
Come on.
Honestly. Now, the cameras I did put up there have detected human movement.
In what way?
It says human detected. They're motion-sensitive tracking cameras. And I get a notice on my cell phone saying human detected. Exact words.
Well, so are these cameras record somewhere? So you go look and see the human?
Yes, I do go look to see, and within a few minutes, the camera's turned off.
But when it detected it, it was on, or it wouldn't have detected it.
Right,
So,
and I've looked and seen, there's dark in an attic, but I've seen shadows that look to be figures of people.
and what would be their motive?
Well, whoever is up there want to protect my mother from me shopping on Amazon and wants me to quit vaping because my physical stuff gets messed with, my nicotine gets poured out. Just strange things that wouldn't happen normally.
So you think they've hired somebody to go up there?
Well, I thought it was based by them because it sounded like my son or daughter up there.
Because, you know, that's pretty expensive to hire somebody to go sit in somebody's attic 24/7.
I know it's ludicrous, and I have told my psychiatrist about this, and he's altered my medication.
Yeah. What did your psychiatrist say about it?
He told me he didn't believe anybody was up there, and he changed the dosage of my medication.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, he hasn't had one delusion since he's been out here.
My dad needs to stop stealing. I've seen everything that he charges to my grandparents' credit cards, and if he doesn't stop, he does need to be held responsible.
Closed captioning provided by...
Frank and I raised our grandchildren, Samantha and PJ, from the time they were babies. Paul and his wife split up, and he brought them straight to me. Paul was helping at first, but then he got caught up in drugs.
No one was paying attention to them, especially Paul. When we first had the children around, neither one of them spoke hardly at all because no one had ever talked to them.
I tried to get custody of the kids, but Paul would never sign them over. But I would love for him to become closer to his kids because they deserve that.
Let me ask you this. You've allowed him to perform criminal acts. You've allowed him to steal from the store. You've allowed him to hijack your identity and charge things,
It's
go to the bank.
Major problems with me and the wife. I mean, almost every time there's an occurrence.
We get in an argument.
There's
Y'all been married
something.
how long?
52 years this year.
How tragic would it be if you let the tension and stress build up to the point that it wrecked a relationship after 52 years?
I'm not going to let that happen.
No, you're not.
I'll move somewhere else and close everything down.
Yeah. And let me ask you this. All the things that you've done, all the paying of the bills, the buying of the houses, buying of the cars, the money that's been taken and wasted, et cetera, Has it helped him move to the next level?
No. He's gotten worse.
You have 2 children?
Yes,
And who's raised your 2 children?
my parents have.
Paul's 25-year-old daughter, Samantha, says she wants her father to stop taking advantage of his elderly parents and realize he doesn't deserve any of their hard-earned money. Let's hear from his daughter.
My dad can be selfish, entitled, and depressed. Dad was in and out of my life. Right now, I don't have too much contact with him, but we are civil. My grandparents raised my brother and I because of my dad's drug use. My dad has anger issues and can be very disrespectful to my grandparents. I don't agree with him stealing and making online purchases. My dad needs to stop stealing. All he needs to do is ask and they'll be happy to help him. Dad thinks he should get money from the family business. I don't think he deserves it because he didn't put much effort into it. I grew up in the business. My dad's focus was trying to sell electronics in a pet store. A pet store is not the place to sell electronics. I've seen everything that he charges to my grandparents' credit cards, and if he doesn't stop, he does need to be held responsible.
You love your father?
Very much.
And you want him to do better, and you want him to not victimize his parents.
Correct.
Why do you think he does what he does?
I've never been sure.
Well, we need to talk about what to do here. I mean, coming up, Paul says his parents blame his past drug use for his behavior and maybe his electrocution when he was 14, but he says they, not the drugs, not the electrocution, are the ones to blame for who he has become and where he is in his life. We'll talk about that when we come back.
I believe Paul started using heavy drugs during the 90s.
I started using cocaine and heroin, and I was hooked.
That was when he was found passed out in his own store.
To pay for drugs, I used money from the pet store and convinced my mother to give me more.
Whatever income he had went to drugs.
In 2002, Paul went to live with his sister, who's a past Olympian. He sold her Olympic ring for drug money, and he got arrested. Paul went to rehab at least 4 times. My son claims he quit using 10 years ago, and he claims he's sober, but I don't buy it.
They want to blame past drug use for the way I'm behaving now, but they are the ones to blame.
I want to ask you, what do you think needs to happen here? What do you think needs to be done for you to be happy, stop feeling like you're a victim, let these people enjoy their retirement? What would have to happen?
I just would like recognition of what's happened, my contribution to why they have what they have. Because I really feel that they would have nothing if it weren't for me.
So what is it you want to happen?
I would like to be in the one of the bigger houses, and a nice house, and have a set amount of money I could spend every week. And a lot of it from my money that I get from disability.
Mm-hmm. So you want them to support you at a higher level?
Yes, based on the work for the past 20 to 30 years.
Let me tell y'all what I think. This is reality.
Yeah.
Okay? Number one, you cannot change what you do not acknowledge. If you don't acknowledge that you're doing this to make yourself feel better, not to make him function at a higher level, then you're never going to change it. And if you will acknowledge that, if you'll acknowledge what we're doing is not working, so we have to stop doing that. Your job as a parent is to prepare your child for the next level of life. That's true when they're 3, 5, 10, 15, whatever. And at this point, you're enabling of him. You know, I think old sayings get to be old sayings because they're profound, like a stitch in time saves 9 and, you know, all that. One of those old sayings is that necessity is the mother of invention. That when we need something, then we'll come up with something. He doesn't need to do any better because you take care of everything. When he needs to do better, he will do better. When he doesn't need to, why would he? I mean, if somebody paid all of my bills and bought me 5 houses and 6 cars, I'd probably be laying around like a lizard on a rock. And I say the same thing to you. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. Look, you're a bright, able-bodied guy. You say, well, I screwed up. You blame them, but you're the one that screwed up. If you've got a criminal record, then do what you can do. Be entrepreneurial. I've never had a job. I've never been hired. I've always been in business for myself. So go do something for yourself. Start out. Build something up on your own. You have skills. You have abilities. If you're saying, I just need, enough money to live an existence that I can feel okay about, you've got to run and start. You've got a house. You've got a car. You've got some money coming in. All you have to do is start building on top of it. You can do more than you're doing. You just don't give yourself credit for it. You can do more than you're doing, and you will feel so much better when you do that. But until you acknowledge that you need to require more of yourself, you'll never do it. You're looking to them to come and hand you something, and they're not going to do it. And so you threaten that you're going to hurt them or yourself. That's childish. You don't need to do that. You're a better man than that. There are 2 more realities we'll cover when we come back, and one of them has to do with, I'm sure you can guess, money. Closed captioning provided by number 2. Do not reward bad behavior. Come on. You're rewarding bad behavior. He steals from you, pay his bills. He steals from you, buy him a house. Steals from you, get him a car. And then you say, I don't understand why he's doing this.
Yes, dumb on my part.
Number 3, you do not solve money problems with money. Now, this is just a reality in life. You don't solve money problems with money. If somebody calls and says, oh, I'm just horribly in debt, can you loan me $10,000? No. Yeah. You know why? Because whatever they did to get $10,000 in debt, unless they change that, they're going to now be $20,000 in debt. You could give him a mansion in Beverly Hills and 10 grand a week. That would not solve the problem.
You're right.
That would not solve the problem. That would not fix the problem. It's not money that's his problem. It's attitude that's his problem. You say you're seeing a psychiatrist, right?
Yes, sir.
What I would like to do, with your permission, is I would like to contact your therapist and ask that individual if it would be okay with them if we offered some adjuncts, some additional resources to what's currently going on. I don't want to interfere with what they're doing, with their therapeutic regimen. I don't want to replace that person. I don't want to do anything to interfere with that. But I want to see if they would be okay with us offering some additional resources for you in addition to what they're doing.
That would be great.
Because one of the things I would like to do, for example, is to arrange for you to have a life coach and help you make a plan that you could get excited about in your life to do some things that you could really be proud of.
I would look forward to doing something like that.
I mean, it would really be, something where you could say, I did this, I didn't get this from my parents, I did this, I set this up, I did this, I'm making money, I'm making my own way, I'm using my skills and abilities, and I'm doing it in a responsible way. I would also like to see if they're okay with us arranging to do a brain scan with you. I want to know what the impact of all of these drugs have been. I want to know what the impact of this electrocution has been. If there are parts of your brain that have been disrupted. We have wonderful technologies these days for awakening parts of the brain that have gone dormant, from calming parts of the brain that have become overactive. to stop neurological storms in certain areas. And I would like to, if it's okay with them, to do a brain scan and find out what's going on there, because there may be some things happening here that are involuntary for you, and I'd like to find out what all of that is.
I'm all up for that.
I want to help you help yourself. And I think you can do very well with that. You're a smart guy. Okay, fair enough? Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes, I think it's wonderful.
But what you got to do is get the hell out of the way.
Yeah.
Okay? You got to stop. If I'm doing it, you got to stop tripping him. You got to stop selling him. You agree with me, right?
Yes.
Fair enough? Okay?
Yeah.
All right, I want to thank all of my guests today. For more information about today's show, log on to drphil.com. We will see you next time.